Welcome to the new Gabourey Sidibe, where secrets don't stay hidden for long. One actress just dropped a bombshell. She secretly underwent stomach surgery to shed the pounds that haunted her for years. "Mocking my weight became a national pastime," she admitted. "I starved myself for nearly 5 months just to keep up." Janet Jackson's dramatic transformation has fans both alarmed and heartbroken. Her rapid weight loss has sparked questions no one seems able to answer. In Hollywood, talent might get you noticed, but your body shape decides how long you stay in the spotlight. Behind the red carpets and camera flashes lies a brutal truth. Maintaining the perfect body isn't a bonus, it's survival. In this unforgiving world, weight isn't just about health or beauty. It's a make-or-break factor. One slip, one change in appearance, and careers can crumble overnight. For everyday people, weight gain may cause concern. But for celebrities, it can be a career-ending catastrophe. Whether you're a sultry sex symbol or a chiseled athlete, Hollywood doesn't forgive what it sees as imperfection. In this video, we revisit 15 black celebrities whose shocking weight gain made headlines, turned public opinion, and in some cases, changed their lives forever. From depression and addiction to burnout and relentless pressure, these transformations weren't just physical. They were personal, emotional, and unforgettable. Oprah Winfrey, when her own body turned against her. At the pinnacle of her career, Oprah Winfrey was untouchable, America's media queen, a symbol of strength, resilience, and success. But in 1988, as millions tuned in daily to her show, she was silently enduring a personal nightmare that few knew about, an uncontrollable weight gain that shattered her spirit. Oprah had always defied the odds, from a childhood marked by poverty and trauma to becoming one of the most influential women in the world. Yet, no amount of fame could protect her from the betrayal she felt within her own body. In less than a year, she went from 160 to over 200 pounds. This wasn't about willpower or overeating. It was a sudden, unexplained transformation that left her exhausted, emotionally drained, and terrified. Her body slowed. Her energy vanished. Her clothes tightened. And the mirror no longer reflected the woman she knew. Oprah tried everything, punishing diets, relentless workouts, but nothing worked. What she didn't know was that a hidden enemy had been wreaking havoc, a thyroid disorder silently attacking her metabolism. The weight gain was just the surface. Behind the scenes, Oprah was battling something deeper: depression, shame, and self-doubt. Every day on camera, she smiled for the world. But off-screen, she felt broken, powerless, and lost. It took a year of suffering before doctors diagnosed her with hypothyroidism. That diagnosis was more than medical. It was a lifeline. Oprah took back control. With treatment, determination, and courage, she began to reclaim her body and her peace. She emerged stronger, but the memory still lingers. A painful reminder of the time when the most powerful woman in media felt utterly powerless. A chapter she survived, but one she'll never forget. Janet Jackson, the unrecognizable transformation that shook Hollywood. She was more than Michael Jackson's little sister. Janet Jackson was a pop powerhouse, a fierce icon of style, sex appeal, and unstoppable stage presence. With electrifying dance moves and a voice that owned the charts, Janet ruled the world's biggest stages. But in 2006, the spotlight turned cold. The world gasped when Janet re-emerged almost unrecognizable. Gone was the chiseled waist, the flawless curves. In just a few months, the superstar had gained over 50 pounds, tipping the scale at 180. For a woman whose image defined perfection, the change was seismic. What happened? Behind the glamorous facade, Janet was quietly unraveling. A failed marriage, overwhelming career pressures, and ruthless media criticism chipped away at her confidence. The cracks turned into collapse. She stopped caring, stopped training, stopped watching what she ate. Depression settled in, and food became both comfort and punishment. The numbers crept up: 130, 140, 150, until one day, nothing in her closet fit. The stage outfits? Too tight. The mirror? A stranger. And Hollywood didn't show mercy. Paparazzi stalked her every move. Tabloids splashed cruel headlines: Janet balloons. From sex symbol to struggle. She became a punchline, a cautionary tale. But what the world couldn't see was the emotional war raging inside her. Janet wasn't just fighting her body, she was fighting herself. Then came the moment of choice, stay down or rise. She chose to rise. With steely resolve, Janet dropped the weight, reclaiming her body and her crown. She returned to the stage with a look fiercer than ever, strong, stunning, and unapologetic. But the pain of that dark chapter didn't vanish. It lives in the shadows of her story, a brutal reminder that even icons can break, but they can also rise again, stronger than before. Monique, 50 pounds of pain, silence, and survival. Monique, fierce, funny, unforgettable. A queen of comedy with a voice that cuts through the noise and a presence that commands the stage. Audiences knew her for the laughter, the power, the brilliance. But behind the punchlines and standing ovations was a woman quietly drowning in darkness. At the height of her fame in the early 2000s, Monique was battling something far more brutal than any heckler, herself. Offstage, the cheers faded into silence. Underneath the glamour, she carried wounds the world couldn't see. Her weight climbed 250, 270, nearly 300 pounds, not just from food, but from the emotional weight of pain, betrayal, and loneliness. What started as innocent indulgences, late-night meals, comfort snacks after shows, soon spiraled into something she couldn't control. Her favorite dresses no longer fit, but the real discomfort was deeper. Food had become her therapy, her escape, her silence in the noise. The scale told one story, but her spirit told another. She had lost herself. And as her body changed, so did the world's gaze. Gossip columns sneered, critics whispered, and strangers judged what they didn't understand. Still, Monique didn't give up. She fought to reclaim her health, her peace, her identity, not just by shedding pounds, but by confronting the demons behind them. That 50-pound gain wasn't just about size. It was about trauma, buried deep and fed by silence. Today, Monique stands tall, radiant, and real. But that chapter of her life? It still lingers like a bruise under the skin, one she'll never forget. Queen Latifah, when grief weighed 40 pounds. Queen Latifah, bold, brilliant, unshakably fierce. A trailblazing force in hip-hop, a powerhouse on screen, a producer with vision. To the world, she was unstoppable. But in 1992, tragedy slammed into her life with the force of a freight train and shattered everything. One phone call. That's all it took to break her. Her brother, the one person who grounded her, who understood her without words, was gone in a tragic accident. The pain was instant, but the aftermath? That lasted years. Grief swallowed her whole. She wasn't just mourning, she was drowning. Sleep fled. Joy vanished. Days blurred into nights. And in the void, food became her only escape. Not for hunger. For comfort. For numbness. Fried foods, sugar, fast food, whatever dulled the ache. She stopped caring. About the gym. About work. About the spotlight she once owned. Roles went unanswered. Energy faded. She spiraled. The vibrant queen the world adored was fading before her own eyes. Her weight soared, over 40 pounds in months. The media noticed, of course. The paparazzi circled like vultures. Tabloids tore into her. Strangers judged. But none of it compared to the brutal war waging inside. She no longer recognized herself. The woman staring back in the mirror wasn't the queen of hip-hop. She was lost, grieving, hollow. But Queen Latifah? She doesn't stay down. She chose to fight, not for fame, not for approval, but for herself. Slowly, step by step, she rose. She found the light again. And though that chapter of loss remains etched into her life, it's also proof of her power. Because even when grief weighed heavy, Queen Latifah rose, stronger, wiser, and still a true queen. Gabourey Sidibe, 50 pounds of pressure, pain, and a relentless disease. Gabourey Sidibe isn't just an actress, she's a force of nature. In 2009, she burst onto the scene like lightning with her unforgettable performance in Precious, shaking the foundations of Hollywood. Practically overnight, the world was chanting her name. Critics hailed her as raw, real, and revolutionary, a rare gem in an industry obsessed with perfection. But behind the standing ovations and flashing cameras was a silent war. While the spotlight beamed down, Gabby was sinking into a personal hell no one could see. Within just 3 years, her weight surged from 300 to over 350 pounds, kicking off a brutal, private battle with her own body. Fame had come fast, too fast. And instead of celebrating her talent, the media zeroed in on her looks. Tabloids tore her apart. Online bullies had a field day. Whispers turned to cruel headlines, and the pressure was crushing. Then, her body began turning against her. Diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome, POS, her health unraveled. The condition didn't just cause her weight to spiral. It triggered hormonal chaos, unbearable swelling, and a metabolism that barely moved. The harder Gabby fought back, the more her body resisted. But it wasn't the number on the scale that hurt most. It was the loneliness. The late nights filled with tears and cravings she couldn't control. The silence. The shame. The feeling that no one, not even Hollywood, was listening anymore. Roles disappeared. Opportunities vanished. And every red carpet became a performance of its own. Smiles on the outside, heartbreak on the inside. Then came the wake-up call. A doctor's blunt warning cut through the noise. Keep going like this, and you'll be facing diabetes, heart failure, or worse. That moment shattered the fog. She realized she wasn't just losing roles, she was losing herself. But this wasn't just a battle with her weight. It was a war against trauma, fear, and years of invisible wounds. And still, Gabby didn't give up. She chose to fight, not just for survival, but for peace, for strength, for the woman beneath the pain. The road back was long and unforgiving, but she walked it anyway. Because Gabourey Sidibe was never just a star. She was a fighter. And fighters don't quit. Eddie Murphy, the 50-pound disappearance of a comedy king. Eddie Murphy wasn't just a comedian, he was a cultural force. From Beverly Hills Cop to Coming to America, he lit up the 80s and 90s with a laugh that echoed across generations. Awards, fame, box office gold, Eddie had it all. But then in the late 2000s, he vanished. No scandals. No farewell tour. Just silence. Hollywood looked around one day, and Eddie Murphy was gone. Big premieres passed without him. Scripts piled up unanswered. The king of comedy had disappeared behind closed doors. And while the world moved on, Eddie changed. Slowly at first. But then came the leaked photos, rare, grainy, and shocking. His once slim frame was heavier. His face fuller. That electric energy that once defined him? Whispers turned to rumors. Depression. A legend losing his fire. The truth? Eddie himself admitted he'd simply lost the spark. He stayed home, drifted into stillness, comforted by routine and careless meals. His weight climbed, from 170 to nearly 220 pounds. But legends don't fade forever. When Eddie returned, he didn't just shed the weight, he reignited his passion. Leaner, wiser, and still funny as hell. Yet those 50 pounds remain. A quiet symbol of a vanished decade, a strange and vulnerable chapter in the life of a man who once made the whole world laugh. Mike Tyson, 80 pounds of pain, partying, and a personal collapse. Mike Tyson wasn't just a boxer, he was a force of nature. A terrifying machine of speed and raw power, feared by every man who dared stand across from him. But when the final bell rang in 2005, it didn't just mark the end of a legendary career, it signaled the beginning of a personal downfall. Without the ring, the discipline, or the adrenaline of battle, Tyson was left adrift. The fire that once fueled his ferocity turned inward, and the weight of his past came crashing down. His body ballooned from a chiseled 220 pounds to over 300. But this wasn't just about gaining weight. This was a complete collapse. Physical, emotional, and spiritual. Gone were the grueling training sessions. In their place, all-night parties, hard liquor, pills, and spirals of sleepless nights. The champion's arms, once capable of knocking giants to the floor, now hung heavy and slow. The thunderous punch that once made the world tremble faded into memory. But what haunted fans most wasn't his size. It was his eyes. Lifeless, empty. Photographs from the late 2000s showed a man who looked like a ghost of his former self. No rage, no fire, just a broken legend trapped inside a body, and a life he no longer recognized. Tyson would later call it the darkest chapter of his life. He hadn't just lost his physique, he'd lost his identity. But if there's one thing Iron Mike never forgot, it's how to fight. And this time, the opponent wasn't in the ring. It was within. He fell hard, but he got back up. And what followed was perhaps the most powerful comeback of all. Not a return to boxing, but a battle to reclaim his soul. Tyler Perry and the 50-pound price of laughter. Tyler Perry isn't just a filmmaker, he's a one-man empire. A visionary who rose from struggle to become one of Hollywood's most influential forces. But behind his billion-dollar success lies a personal sacrifice few ever saw. One name, one character, became inseparable from his legacy: Madea. The loud, sharp-tongued, lovable grandmother who left audiences in stitches for years. To truly bring Madea to life, Perry didn't just slip into a costume, he transformed his body. Starting in 2005, he gained nearly 50 pounds, pushing his weight from 200 to over 240 pounds, not for vanity, but for authenticity. This wasn't a role. It was a commitment. Off-screen, that commitment turned into torment. To keep Madea believable, Perry forced himself to overeat, packing on the pounds for every production. When the cameras stopped rolling, he had to train relentlessly, shedding weight just in time for his more dramatic roles. It was a punishing cycle: gain, lose, repeat. The physical toll was immense. The mental weight even heavier. Perry once admitted, "I love Madea, but sometimes I just want to escape her." Yet the world wasn't ready to let her go. The success was overwhelming, the demand relentless. It wasn't until 2019 that Perry finally laid Madea to rest, closing a 15-year chapter of laughter and struggle. But those 50 pounds remain part of his story, a symbol of what he gave up to bring joy to millions. A quiet reminder that behind every laugh is a sacrifice the audience never sees. Chris Tucker at 50, the price of disappearing fame. In the late 90s, Chris Tucker wasn't just making people laugh, he was electrifying the world. With his rapid-fire wit and magnetic charm, Rush Hour became a global phenomenon, and Tucker shot to superstardom. Every role he touched turned to gold. Then, almost without warning, he vanished. No headlines, no scandal, just silence. The vibrant James Carter we all loved faded into the background. When Tucker finally resurfaced, fans were stunned. The man who once lit up the screen at 160 pounds had ballooned to over 210. Gone were the blockbusters and the $25 million paydays. In leaked photos, he looked tired, his eyes dimmer, his body slower, his spark seemingly gone. Hollywood barely recognized him. Was it depression? He never said outright. But his quiet admission, "I wasn't excited about big movies anymore," spoke volumes. He hadn't just lost his figure, he'd lost the fire that made him unforgettable. Maybe fame had weighed too heavily on him. But Tucker didn't stay lost. Slowly, he fought his way back, through training, clean eating, and rebuilding his identity. While he may never reach those dazzling heights again, he reclaimed something even more important: himself. Russell Hornsby, 40 pounds of grit and transformation. Russell Hornsby isn't just an actor, he's a force of depth, intensity, and raw commitment. Known for powerful performances in Grimm and Lincoln Heights, Hornsby has long commanded the screen. But one role demanded more than just acting chops. It demanded a complete transformation of body and mind. When he took on the role of Detective Hank Griffin in Grimm, 2011 to 2017, Hornsby was asked to do the unthinkable: gain over 40 pounds in a matter of weeks. From a fit 180 pounds, producers wanted him bulked up to reflect the presence of a hardened, streetwise cop. And Hornsby didn't hesitate. He dove into a punishing regimen, thousands of calories a day, day after day, forcing his body to expand with every meal. The weight came fast: 190, 200, 210. Soon, he was carrying a different version of himself. The agile actor was gone. His steps grew heavier, action scenes became harder, and yet he never complained. While other actors might drop the weight after filming, Hornsby held that body for 6 long years, every pound a symbol of his dedication. When Grimm finally wrapped in 2017, the real challenge began, getting back to the man he used to be. But shedding 6 years of weight isn't just physical, it's a mental war. The habits, the metabolism, the identity, all changed. Yet Hornsby fought back, reshaping himself piece by piece. Today, he's returned to form, but those 210-pound years remain etched in his memory, a silent sacrifice made for a role that transformed not just his career, but his very being. Kanye West, 50 pounds of pain, silence, and survival. Kanye West wasn't just a rapper, he was a force of nature. A visionary who reshaped music, fashion, and culture with every move. From groundbreaking albums to the billion-dollar Yeezy empire, Kanye embodied confidence, control, and creative chaos. But in 2016, the empire cracked. What followed wasn't just a breakdown. It was a free fall into isolation, darkness, and nearly 50 pounds of silent suffering. It started with a public unraveling. In late 2016, Kanye was hospitalized for what they called mental exhaustion, but it was deeper than that. The fire in his eyes dimmed. Gone were the rants, the swagger, the fearless provocations. In their place stood a man exhausted, fragile, and drowning in his own mind. The weight came next. From a lean 180 to over 230 pounds in under 2 years. This wasn't simple weight gain, it was a symptom of sleepless nights, of emotional chaos, of a man numbing his pain with food, silence, and solitude. Gone were the sleek designer fits. He began hiding behind oversized hoodies and shapeless pants, as if trying to disappear from a world that once hung on his every word. Paparazzi didn't miss a beat. Every bloated photo, every awkward appearance became tabloid gold. Has Kanye lost it? Is he okay? But Kanye didn't answer. He vanished into the noise, spiraling further, erratic tweets, broken friendships, and a body that reflected the storm inside. Only when it felt like his life was truly on the line did he begin to fight back. Slowly, the weight came off. The confidence returned. But the shadow of those years, 2016 to 2018, never fully faded. Because they weren't just about losing control. They were about watching a genius hit rock bottom in silence, in shadow, and in plain sight. Aretha Franklin. 50 pounds of silence, suffering, and strength. Aretha Franklin wasn't just the queen of soul, she was the heartbeat of a generation. A symbol of power, grace, and unmatched vocal fire. But behind the dazzling legacy was a quiet, devastating battle. In the late 2000s, fans noticed a change. Her body, once full of vibrant energy, began to shift. She gained nearly 50 pounds in just a few short years. But this wasn't about diet, aging, or indulgence. Something far darker was unfolding. Between 2008 and 2010, Aretha's transformation was stark. Her movements slowed, her steps grew heavy. Each public appearance came with whispers, "Is she okay? What's happening?" But there were no answers, just concern and confusion. And then the scales tipped again. After the sudden gain came an even more alarming loss. Aretha began wasting away. Her once strong frame grew frail. Her face, once radiant, turned gaunt. She looked like a shadow of the soul queen the world adored. On stage, every note became a battle. Yet she never said a word. No public pity. No tabloid confessions. Just quiet strength. And then, in 2018, the heartbreaking truth emerged. Aretha had been fighting pancreatic cancer for years. Those 50 pounds told the story her voice never did. Of pain, of resilience, and of a queen who carried her crown to the very end, even as her body betrayed her. DMX, 60 pounds of pain, prison, and the fall of a legend. DMX wasn't just a rapper, he was a storm. A raw, untamed force in hip-hop whose bark, growl, and truth shook the world. But behind the platinum records and sold-out shows was a man spiraling into a darkness he couldn't outrun. Fame lit the stage, but addiction dimmed his soul. Between 2000 and 2010, the warrior we once knew began to disappear. His once lean 180-pound frame ballooned to over 240 pounds, a staggering 60-pound gain. But it wasn't just weight. It was grief, addiction, depression, each pound a silent scream from a body and mind in collapse. As the arrests piled up, so did the damage. Courtrooms, mugshots, jail cells, DMX became a prisoner of his own life. The fierce energy that once powered his performances gave way to sluggishness, exhaustion, and a broken spirit. The gym sessions were gone. The fighter's strength faded. His body became a mirror of his pain, bloated, heavy, and burdened by the weight of it all. Then came the crash. Rapid weight loss. Not from healing, but from the body finally giving out. Drugs had drained the last of his fire. His eyes grew hollow, his face unrecognizable, his voice faint. The storm that once electrified the world had become a whisper. In April 2021, it all ended. A heart attack, triggered by an overdose, silenced one of hip-hop's loudest voices. DMX didn't just die, he was taken by a war he'd fought for decades. Chadwick Boseman. 30-pound sacrifice for greatness. Chadwick Boseman wasn't just an actor, he was a force of nature. A dedicated artist who poured his soul into every role, every line, every frame. From breaking barriers as Jackie Robinson in 42 to ruling Wakanda as the mighty Black Panther, Chadwick didn't just perform, he became. In 2014, when he stepped into the shoes of the electrifying James Brown for Get On Up, Chadwick took on one of his most grueling transformations. He packed on nearly 30 pounds of muscle in record time, going from a lean 160 pounds to a body that pulsed with the raw energy of the Godfather of Soul. Every calorie was a challenge. Every workout, a war. He didn't just mimic James Brown, he embodied him, down to the swagger, the soul, and the signature strut. But the price of greatness is high. After filming, Chadwick had to rapidly shed the weight for upcoming roles. The cycle began, gain, lose, gain again, pushing his body to its limits. And behind the scenes, a silent battle was raging. In 2016, he was diagnosed with cancer. Yet no one knew. Not the fans. Not the world. Only his family. Still he kept going. Through surgeries, chemo, pain, he trained, acted, transformed. He kept giving us heroes while quietly fighting to live. By the time the world saw his final photos, it was heartbreaking. The vibrant king looked frail, unrecognizable. The weight was gone. The muscle faded. But what remained was something far greater, a legacy of unimaginable strength, sacrifice, and unshakable purpose. Chadwick didn't just play legends. He was one. And there you have it, 15 Black celebrities whose transformations shocked the world. These icons, once celebrated for their vibrant energy and fit physiques, have faced battles that left them almost unrecognizable. Their journeys remind us that behind the fame and fortune, they're still human, dealing with struggles just like the rest of us. If you found this video eye-opening, don't forget to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more stories that dive deeper into the lives of the stars you thought you knew. See you in the next one.